My name is F.C. Chandler. I'm recording an interview with Mr. Tyler Watts at the Atlanta History Center. Tyler, would you please give us your name, date of birth, and so forth?
My name is Watts Pearson Tyler. I was born on the 13th day of February, 1921, in the big town near the big town of Buena Vista, Georgia. It's in Marion County.
Marion County. And we're here to talk about your experiences, particularly in World War II, but understand that you had a full military career.
That's correct. I was in the Army for a total of 29 years, right at 29 years. Right.
When did you first enter the Army?
25th day of September, 1942.
And where did you go for basic training?
Camp Barkley, Texas.
And that lasted how long?
About 6 weeks, maybe a little longer. It seemed longer, but I'm sure it was about 6 weeks. Camp Barkley, Texas.
This was infantry basic?
No, it was like infantry basic, but at that time it was the medical corps had that thing out there. I don't know why, but that's where I was, and that's where I took basic training at Camp Barkley, Texas. It was near Abilene, Texas. If that rings a bell with you.
Out in West Texas.
Right, Abilene, Texas. Right.
Was that your first trip to Texas?
No, I had been through Texas. Gosh, don't ask me when. Early in life, somewhere traveling with my dad or something other, but I don't remember all the details of it.
Do you have any memories of basic training and your instructors and that sort of thing?
Well, it was the usual basic training. I remember it wasn't no picnic. It was,
About 3 months?
No, it didn't last that long. It was a little over 2 months, so it was quite a Getting out drilling every day and going on marches. If you've been through basic, you know what it is. Drilling and all this stuff. And I learned to do calisthenics, and that's one of the things that they have me do in the morning. I was sorry I learned to do them. I had to get out and get instructions how to do calisthenics in the morning, Side straddle hop and all that stuff.
Yeah, do that before breakfast.
Before breakfast, you got. That's right. You got that. That was it before breakfast. Right after reveille, you get out and did that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And where did you go from Camp Barkley?
Camp Barkley, Texas. I went to Camp Swift, Texas. It was south of there, Camp Swift. And I think both of these camps have been done away with, I think, by now. But Camp Swift.
I think you're right. Those were temporary.
They were temporary. That's right.
Yeah.
Just brought them in there to train troops and get them out. That's about what it amounted to. Camp Barkley, Camp Swift.
They closed up once in World War II, temporary.
Yeah, and then I went from there to Camp Maxey, Texas. And goodness.
Is that where you were assigned to the 1st Infantry Division?
No, not there. Later on, I had finished the career and went to Germany my second time before I was first assigned to the 1st Infantry Division. I had put in and got a warrant in medical supply and was assigned to the 47th Medical Depot Company and got sent first to England and then into France. And we went in through Belgium and wind up in the last place we set up the depot was in Elsdorf, Germany, in an old abandoned sugar factory. It was abandoned because we'd run the crowds out of there, I guess. But that's where it was, in Elsdorf, Germany.
That was toward the end of the European War?
It was, yes. It would have had to been by I would say about March or April of 45 at that time, yeah.
Let's back up a little bit. How did you get from the United States to England?
By ship.
By ship?
Went into England, yeah.
And do you remember where you were in England?
A little place called Barton Stacey. It was not too far from Winchester, England. Barton Stacey. You ever heard of that place? A little town.
I've been to Winchester.
If you've been to Winchester, it was Just no peace in Winchester, England.
So when you have a little time off, you're going to Winchester to check.
Yeah, going to Winchester. And on some days we could get to London. Had all those barrage balloons strung up all over London. If you went down, you would remember those barrage balloons all over London.
Well.
Yeah, all over London now.
You used to tell the English kids that we're going to cut those barrage balloons off.
Yeah.
The island would sink.
Yeah. I remember being in London and at a movie, and they bombed the damn town and the thing shook, and everybody, they didn't get up and leave, they just stayed in the damn movie. Goodness, the crowds were, I don't know what it was, those bombs that they'd sent over there and the putt-putt jobs that they had that hit in there, whether they was bombing the place, you couldn't tell by being in the movie what was causing it, but it'd shake. But in those days, people just kept watching the movie.
Well, I think those were V2s. When the engine cut out, you
Yeah. If you was out, can hear it, but inside a movie, I don't know whether you can even hear that thing or not. All we knew is that it shook like crazy when you was in the movie.
London was blacked out in those days.
Yeah, London, you couldn't see nothing. Well, it depends on whether there was a moon out, and there's seldom ever out in London.
Yeah, the Red Cross had a club there, I think it was called Rainbow Corner, somewhere around Piccadilly.
Yeah, they did. That's right, they did. Sure did, yeah.
How long were you in England before you went to France?
Oh, it wasn't very long, goodness. Maybe a couple of months, and then we went into France, across the China.
D-Day.
No, I didn't get in that D-Day a little bit later. Thank goodness I didn't get in on the D-Day run. But it was bad enough. But
you were in medical supply?
I was in a medical depot company at that time.
Did you have a hospital attached to it?
No, there was no hospital. We supplied various hospitals, field hospitals. And that's what we did, furnished those field hospitals with medical supplies. And as I say, I was a motor officer and mess officer at that time. And we run trucks on a daily basis taking medical supplies to various field hospitals as they went from various places across France and Belgium and then Germany. Of course, the last place being in Germany.
You had to move from time to time.
Oh, yeah. It seemed like constantly from one place to another. I guess we moved about 5 times, the entire depot, from one spot to another. We went going on into Germany. Elsdorf was the last place we stayed, though.
You mentioned that you were ready to go across the Remagen Bridge and it collapsed on you.
We had went down the Remagen Bridge, and there was some field hospitals that had crossed the Rhine, was over on the other side of the Rhine from where our depots we located in Elsdorf. And we were trying to get some medical supplies over to these field hospitals out there. But at the time, the 9th Armored Division was crossing the bridge down there. And I had got in line with a couple of trucks of medical supplies, thinking I was going to sneak in there and get on the cross. And got to a certain point, and the MP stopped me and said, "You got the wrong bumper number. You can't go across right now." I said, "What's the matter?" And he says, "Well, it's got a general commanding the 9th Army that won't let anybody cross but his unit right now." So I pulled off to the side, and I hadn't been there, I guess, 10 minutes, and we heard this funny noise. The bridge fell in. The entire bridge just collapsed in the Rhine River right there. And the people started hollering, "The bridges fell in," and all this kind of stuff. People running down there. And there's quite a number of kids got drowned in that doggone thing. And I don't know what all the details. When I heard if they'd had their helmets and all that stuff off, it might have been better for them. But they went out with a rifle strapped on them and everything else in the bottom of the Rhine. And I don't know.
You got a picture of yourself there at that bridge. You want to show it to us?
Yes, I can show you. That's a day or so later, and that's the thing after it had collapsed in the river there.
Well, how did you manage to get across the Rhine since there was no bridge there?
Well, it was 2 days later I finally crossed up at Cologne. They had put in a pontoon bridge up at Cologne. they had, of course, the Krauts had blown the bridges out, but by then they put in a pontoon bridge, and they named the pontoon bridge the Ernie Pyle Pontoon Bridge. And that's where I crossed the Rhine during the war, on that Ernie Pyle Pontoon Bridge during World War II. Yeah. Finally got across there. Get into those hospitals and bring that stuff out to those guys. It was quite an experience, really.
The Rhine's very wide and very swift and long, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah, pontoon bridge is quite an experience.
Yeah, that's.
Every now and then somebody would fall off.
Yeah. Well, at the time I went across there, didn't seem to be all that big a deal, but we just went on. There's quite a number of people that was going across at the same time, and as I remember, I was in a Jeep and I had a couple of deuce and a halfs with me, and we just went right on across it, along with quite a bit of other traffic going right across that.
If you got across the Rhine, then you had to set up your medical supplies.
Well, I had to deliver these medical supplies to a couple of field hospitals that was in there. Our depot was still stationed in Elsdorf, and we would run from Elsdorf to wherever these field hospitals were. But we intended to move across the Rhine pretty soon, but the war ended and we didn't get it. On the 8th of May, I believe it was April, one of the two, they surrendered.
Did you have to go back and forth across the Rhine to get your supplies to deliver?
Yeah, I had to go back. The field hospitals was across the Rhine those hospitals that they had moved across there. Most of them had moved across the Rhine. And we were still in that place we had found there in Elsdorf. We had moved to several different places until we got up there, but Elsdorf was the last place we moved the depot to.
I think you got a picture of Elsdorf set up. Why don't you show us?
Elsdorf was, see if I can't show you much of it, but this is the town I'm telling you about. It's Elsdorf, Germany.
That's a picture of you.
And that's a picture of me there. That's where it was. And that's the old sugar factory, smokestack, and all that's there, part of it. But the main part of the old place would have been off to the left that I don't have with me. They don't show the real parts.
It was a sugar factory.
It was a sugar factory, right? So, yeah, but we took it over and used it to store medical supplies and stuff, and run back and forth from there to the various places to deliver the medical supplies. That's the last place we was.
You want to share some of those other pictures with us?
Yes, I'll show you the whole 9 yards. I think I just showed you the one of the Remagen Bridge after it fell in. That's several days later that I went back down there, and it was still laying in the Rhine River there.
You didn't swim across the Rhine?
Not hardly, no. And I think I just showed you this one. This was some little town in Belgium. I do not know where it was. It just happened to be a little town that I took a picture of in Belgium. Can you see it there? I guess you can.
See it fine.
There you go. And this happened to be a couple of tanks that had got knocked out someplace just outside of some little town there in Belgium.
Those look like German Tigers to me.
That's what they are, German tanks. They got knocked out, and I took pictures of them. That's what it amounts to. And
we didn't particularly care for those Tigers in the Air Force because they had an 88 millimeter gun.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine.
I was coming back from a raid on, I think it was Dresden. We were using the Autobahn to navigate with, and all at once flak started coming up off the Autobahn, and it was a German armor division that was shooting at us.
Yeah. That's about all the pictures that I brought with me. This is just another one of myself at someplace. Right there in Elsdorf.
That's you about 60 years ago.
Oh, yeah. It's been a while. It's been a while.
Were you in Germany when the war was over?
Oh, yes. I was there when the war ended.
The rules were you didn't fraternize with the Germans.
Yeah. Of course, we paid that a lot of attention.
I'm sure you did. And did you set up your medical supply organization there permanently after VE Day?
No. They alerted us to be, the war hadn't ended in the Pacific. And they immediately told us we was going to have to be sent to the South Pacific to fight the Japanese, to go to in that part of the world.
Good news.
Yeah. So we packed up and left that area and went down to southern France to all staging area. And we had boarded ship and had left left that port down in southern France and was out in the Mediterranean there somewhere. When we found out they had dropped the first A-bomb on, I forget which city it was, what it was. Hiroshima, I guess, the first one. And the next day, I believe they dropped the second one. And the next day, I believe they surrendered. Yeah. Anyway, we had a big celebration aboard ship out there. I remember I was out there finding filthy calibers all over the doggone place out there myself, you know. Hooping it up, the war was over. But we sobered up the next morning and realized we were still headed for the Panama Canal. Oh my goodness, we're going to be there forever now of occupation, if you know what I mean. That didn't work out too good, but fortunately that afternoon they announced, watch the bow of the ship as we turned to go to Boston. Man, we really hooped it up then. And there was a point system over there at that time. If you had as many as 80 points, you were left in the area and was going to be sent straight back to the States. It was based on how many months you had spent over there and the conditions you were under when you got there, and I forgot. Anyway, I liked just a few points having 80. Didn't qualify, and I was on that boat headed to go fight the Japs. But we beat all those guys home by a considerable period of time. We came straight back into Boston.
So where did they send you from Boston?
Well, from Boston, I got sent to, actually I got sent to Camp Blandon, Florida to be released for 45 days TDY at home. I don't know if you remember how they did that.
Well, they sent me to Fort Mac first.
Fort Mac, that's where I live, see, but they sent me to, and I came right through Atlanta. Could have got off the train and walked home, got stopped in East Point, but still went all the way to Blandon, Florida, and got separated down there and had to come all the way back to, the wife was living in East Point at that time.
So you were discharged from the Army at that point?
Not at that point. I went back. They gave me 45 days TDY at home, and then went back down there, and then I was separated after I got back down at Blandon, Florida. I was separated down there. And I went back to a little civil service job I had out at Atlanta General Depot. At that time, it was known as Atlanta General Depot. And subsequently, I saw I wasn't going to get too far along in that line, and I re-enlisted in the Army. And I re-enlisted, as I recall, in 47.
You remember when they had acres of old Jeeps out there at, I think they call it Conley Depot, it's Fort Dillon now.
Yeah, Conley.
You could go to VA and get
one side, it was Conley. And
one for $100.
Yeah. I think the one side known as Atlanta General Depot, and the other side was Conley. Conley was the name of it, or something. At any rate, Atlanta General Depot was what the name that where I was working out there.
Well, they had a Wheeler up north too.
Yeah, that's right.
And Lawson General Hospital. All the way to
Lawson. Yeah, oh yeah, on this side. But at any rate, that's.
47, you went back in the Army.
Yep, I went back in the Army. Didn't take them no time to send me back to Germany. I went back. This time I was with the 1st Infantry Division, and the headquarters for 1st Division was located down at Bad Tolz, Germany, down in southern Germany. And I took the family over there with me at that time. And this young lady, I think you were too small to even go to school at that time, was you? 6 months old, yeah. She probably don't remember a bit of it. But at that time, they hadn't built government quarters for the GIs over there. But they had commandeered all these homes that these Nazis had. And some of these homes were, you couldn't believe, there's a lake out there, Tegernsee. And there were some super nice homes out there that they had commandeered all these homes of these Nazis that they either shot or was in jail. And they told me to go out there and pick out a house. I remember the first one I looked at had 22 rooms in it. 22 rooms. Ain't no way my wife can take care of this place. And I finally kept looking at homes until I finally settled on a 4-bedroom house. It was a real nice home at that. And I remember getting back to the concern, and there I learned that I was going to have a houseman and a maid to go along with the place. And this was all going to, it was going to cost me hardly nothing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said, boy, if I'd have known that, I'd have got a little bit bigger house. But at any rate, we had a nice home there. And we met some German people there that we know to this very date. The older lady, though, just died about 2 months ago. She was 94 years old. We didn't get in there good before they showed up at the front door wanting to work for us as maids, because they were desperate at that time, those German people were.
They worked for you as a maid, they could eat.
Oh, yeah. And that was part of the gimmick that they gave me. I remember when I got back, they said, you get a houseman and a maid to go along with the place. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, And they helped keep the place up and all that. It was pretty plush living. And we stayed there from 44, 9, 50. I came home in 50. I didn't get home good. And the Korean War broke out. Bam! I said, my goodness alive. And by what had happened, I had re-enlisted in the Army as an E6, a sergeant first class. And I had got back, I think I'd got promoted once since that time. And at that time I was working out here on Ponce de Leon with the reserve headquarters was out there. And I put in and I got my warrant back just like that. Boom. The Korean War broke out. And I did manage to stay out there until 53. And I got sent to Germany in 1953, but I had just made chief warrant officer, because in those days there's only 2 grades, JG and the chief. Later on they come out with a W3 and W4, and now they got W5. But I hung in there until I finally retired in 1971. In the meantime, I had more tours in Europe and another tour in Korea.
And you wound up in the Pentagon, didn't you?
And then I went to work in the Pentagon and worked up there for another 15 years. So I've had a pretty long career, yeah.
Were you in the military when you were at the Pentagon? Or?
No, I had retired. I retired at Fort Belvoir. I came back from
Belvoir, Virginia?
Yeah, I came back from my last tour in Korea. They made me. I'm probably the only warrant officer in the Army that ever served as an adjutant general. It just so happened that an old general over there had known me when he was a colonel named Marlin, and he found what happened. He caught his adjutant general black marketing in Korea. And in Korea, that's a big no-no, black marketing, get caught anyway. But at any rate, his name was Raymond Marlin. He was a major general. And he said, he asked the Pentagon, send him the records of some old warrant officers. He was tired of these guys black marketing on him, and somehow my records got sent over to him. He told me about it after I got there.
You tired of these ROTC lieutenants?
Yeah, something like that. At any rate, he had known me when I was assigned to the 3rd Infantry Division for a period of time in the 50s. And he was in the same compound that I was at Schweinfurt, Germany. And that's how he happened to pick me as his adjutant general. So I went around for 1 year. I was his adjutant general for a Provisional Military Assistance Advisory Group in Seoul, Korea. And that was my last overseas assignment. That was that one.
You were stationed at Schweinfurt for a while?
I was stationed at Schweinfurt in 1958. There was a program called a gyroscope, and we took the 3rd Infantry Division out of Fort Benning, Georgia, to Germany. And the unit I was with, which is with the 38th Infantry, wound up in Schweinfurt, Germany, along with the 30th.
The 8th Air Force went to Schweinfurt twice.
The 8th Air Force.
1943, and those were the deadliest missions that we ever flew.
Yeah, tore the place all to pieces. You just flattened that town. It still had some signs of it when I got there. What?
Still had some bomb damage?
Yeah, darn right. After I got there, sure. Yep, sure did.
We lost lost a lot of good men on those raids.
Yeah. But that was my last tour in Germany was in Schweinfurt. But my last tour in Europe was in Paris, France. I got assigned to Shape in Paris.
Oh, wait, how long were you at Shape?
3 years and a few months.
Who was the Supreme Commander when you were there?
Lionel Lemnitzer.
General Lemnitzer.
Lionel. He and I played golf practically every damn weekend. I was his flunky, you might say. But I was his golfing partner. I had won a little golf tournament when I got there. And just by winning that golf tournament, all of a sudden, he had just gotten that too. And I became his golf partner. And for the whole 3 years I was there, it was every weekend affair. We played, you might say, golf either down at Saint Germain or Saint Nom or someplace. They had about 6 courses there in Paris. We could join one course for about $150 a year. And you remember all the rest of them, thanks to, I guess Eisenhower set that up for us. I'm not sure who did it. But Ike was one of the first in there. But I remember when they had the 20th anniversary of D-Day while I was there. And it just so happened I was sitting right outside of Lemnitzer's office. And Eisenhower and Bradley came over there to celebrate for the 20th anniversary of D-Day. And we had it all set up to meet them at the airport and bring them out to the headquarters. And what they did, they got off the plane, went and got a taxi and came straight out to Shape and walked in on us. I remember Jim Lemnitzer like to died when they walked in. But there they were, though, right? But they came over there and they had a little ceremony out there where the invasion took place out there. You know where it is. You're going out Route 55, you run right out there to it where they went in there.
You had an opportunity to talk with General Eisenhower?
Just for a very few minutes, and just for a minute. He won't know how long I had been there and all that kind of stuff. And at that time, I hadn't been there very long. And, he just carries on conversation, chew the fat. I think that's about all it was.
Probably won't know if you were from Kansas.
No, he didn't ask that.
That was a big deal. He always want to know if anybody ever from Kansas.
It didn't last too long because we had a button out of mash, and when they showed up in the office and that, we mashed the button so Lemnitzer couldn't come running out there. See, he was then the Supreme Allied Commander, and he didn't have any idea that they had walked in on us. And I was mashing that damn button for him to run out there and meet Eisenhower and Bradley. But that's some of the things that happen during your life.
What was your impression of Bradley?
He's a nice guy, you know that, Bradley? There's something about the guy. You just, he's a down-to-earth kind of a fella. He chewed the fat with you just like he's one of the boys, Something.
Well, our father called him the GI General,
He did. I never did get to know, except what little bit of time he was around there, but while he was around there, he was chewing the fat all the time, wanted to know where you was from and all that kind of stuff, how long you been there. He's just one of the regular guys, all that kind of stuff. So I was pretty impressed with the old boy, just listening to him.
Both those fellows had fantastic careers in the Army.
Yeah.
Of course, Ike became the president.
Yeah, well, I got to be president later on, goodness alive.
I sometimes think he was the last of the best presidents we've had.
Yeah, I think so.
I better watch it, I'll get into politics.
I don't know, good God, what we got now is kind of making me wonder. And I'm sure a lot of these mothers and fathers who are losing sons over there right now are really thinking twice about it. One every day, 2 or 3 every day, seems like these days.
It's interesting to me. You remember when Pearl Harbor happened?
I sure do. I was out riding around with the wife.
You remember where you were?
I remember exactly where I was. I was down here around Fairmont driving around with the wife in the car. And it was on the car radio, they bombed Pearl Harbor. And the first thing I asked, where in the world is Pearl Harbor? Where it was. But yeah, 7th of December, 1941. Yeah.
You remember all the division and arguments quit. Everybody came together.
Oh, yeah.
World War II.
Oh, yeah, in a hurry.
In a hurry.
Yeah, because they bombed us, goodness, yeah.
It hasn't happened since.
No.
Yet those two towers in New York, we lost more people up there than we did in Pearl Harbor.
That's right. And those scoundrels flew in. Who in the world would they thought they would have flew damn planes in them in it? And them in it. That's what blows your mind. It takes a nut, doesn't it? I don't know. But that's what they did.
They're over there trying to figure out something else they could do to us.
Yeah, probably are.
So you retired from the Army when, in
1971, in the 1st of July, 1971.
But you stayed at the Pentagon in Washington.
And yeah, then I got a job in the Pentagon. I had to stay out 6 months. There's a law that says you got to stay out 6 months before you get another job with the military. And that's what I did. I stayed out 6 months and then went to work in the Pentagon.
What did you do in the Pentagon?
I was with the Army Board for Correctional Military Records.
Army Board for Correctional
Of Military Records. It's like the Army Supreme Court.
What would be a typical request for record correction you deal with?
Well, I'd say the most applications we got for changing the character of the discharge. Guys who got out and got bad discharges want to come in and get the type of discharge changed from, well, you know, what it was a dishonorable or some other damn thing to give him an honorable status so he could get GI benefits for whatever he got when he got out of there, most likely. But we handled everything in the war from soup to nuts for people who were trying to get disabilities and all that kind of stuff. Thousands and thousands and thousands of cases while I was there. One of the cases that I handled was our current Secretary of State he was Commanding Forces Command down here. It was an old boy named Henry Osmond Flipper. I don't know if you ever heard of Flipper or not. He was the first black guy to graduate from the U.S. Military Academy.
He was from Georgia.
Yeah, and he sure was. And he wound up getting a dishonorable discharge. And I happened to get that damn case. And God, I must have had it, I don't know how many months, but at any rate, I got, when they sent me the old court-martial for it, it was so old and decrepit that every time I tried to turn the page, it would want to disintegrate on me and tear apart, and I couldn't read and see what in the world I had there, what it was all about. And then somebody told me that they had it on microfilm down in the archives downtown D.C. there. And I said, boy, that'd be great if I can get it on microfilm. So I did. I went down to the archives in downtown D.C. and it was on microfilm down there. And from that, but then I got at this machine I was trying to read, and it was driving me crazy.
Put your eyes out.
And then somebody says, well, my son-in-law, who was working out at Cameron Station at then, old Gary, says, I can reduce that thing to hard copy for you. I said, great. So I took the thing over, and sure enough, a couple of days he had it. Of course, it wound up about that thick. But I had the court-martial, and old Flippers, and after I got to reviewing old Flippers, you know, it was obvious to me that the guy, he really did get the shaft. So I took it to a formal hearing and convinced 4 out of the 5 members of the board to change old Flipper's discharge from dishonorable to honorable. And at that time, old Colin Powell was Commanding Forces Command down here. And when old Flipper had died in the meantime, he turned out to be a real solid citizen after then, and worked for the, I forget, but anyway, he was a surveyor out in Arizona Territory and all this kind of stuff, and had came back to Atlanta and had died up in West End, and his remains were buried up in West End.
Where?
In West End here in Atlanta.
West End.
In West End, yeah.
Westview Cemetery.
Yeah, Westview Cemetery, that's where he was buried. At any rate, as I say, old Colin was Commanding Forces Command up here. He had old Flipper's remains dug up, honor guard escorted him all the way down to his hometown in Thomasville, Georgia, and reburied him down there next to his mother.
Full military honors.
Full military honors, sure did. Old Colin Powell, who's now Secretary of State. That's the kind of cases I have. I was wrapped up in them kind of jobs. And I just love that kind of.
I've read some accounts of that court-martial. It appeared to me that they were out to get him.
It's obvious that they were, and because he turned out to be a real solid citizen after he got out and got that other job.
He was a good officer, too.
Yeah, he was. The only woman who ever got the Medal of Honor I'm the guy who gave her name. Mary Edwards Walker. She was a doctor during the Civil War. If you call about 2 years in Syracuse Medical College to make you a doctor, but she got during the Civil War. She was a doctor for all practical purposes.
Did she get the medal during the Civil War?
She had been given. That was the only damn medal they had during the Civil War. It had been given to her. And what happened when they changed the criteria after World War II, World War I, take it back, to what it is now, they had taken everybody's name off the damn list who had gotten them. You know, prior to that time, the Medal of Honor was just hardly nothing. They was giving the Medal of Honor to just anybody in the world for just damn near nothing.
Like a good conduct medal.
Yeah, it's just nothing.
I've heard that whole regiment for war.
Yeah, just handing it out. And what happened? This Mary Edwards Walker had made such a big deal out of the way she was treated as as an army doctor during the war, that somebody had suggested to Lincoln, let's give her the Medal of Honor. And he said, well, that's a good idea, to keep her from shutting her mouth and all this kind of stuff. And they gave her the Medal of Honor, and she seemed to please the hell out of her. Well, of course, time rocks on and she's dead, but in the meantime, they changed the criteria to what it is now. But before that time, she had contested this thing for taking the Medal of Honor, but she died before they could do anything. But a
Gave it to her and then they took it away from her.
Yeah, that's right. But a grandniece applied to our board on her behalf to get that medal back to her. And it had gained so much publicity when we got it, it seemed like all the news media had got a hold of it. And I took it to a formal hearing. And of course, the more I reviewed it, she hadn't done anything to really earn the Medal of Honor under the criteria it takes to get that thing these days, Because she had been given the Medal of Honor by Lincoln just to shut her up from keep griping so much. But at any rate, four members of the panel voted to give the medal back to her, and I had to dream up so much goddamn excuses. And she's got the damn Medal of Honor back. That's the kind of cases we're handling up. It was a real interesting.
When you would review one of these cases, you would have to take it to an effective court, right?
Yeah, I'd have to take it. We had about 25 or 30 people who had been designated by the Secretary of the Army to be on this board. They all have to be civilians. They can't be military at all. If they sit on that board for the board correction, they can't.
Lawyers, they have legal training.
They can have legal training, anything they want, but they have to be working for the Department of the Army in some status. But they cannot be on as a military. No, they can be working for the Department of the Army, civil service status, and all this. And that's where we picked them from. And it took 5 members to make a panel. And 4 out of the 5 voted to give the damn thing back to her, and that's what happened. She's got it back.
I have heard that General Douglas MacArthur's father, who was a boy colonel in the Civil War, I think he was 19, 20 years old when he was regimental commander.
Yeah.
He was not awarded the medal during the war, and he protested it, and it took him 20 years to get it, I guess. He went through this process to get it.
Yeah. I think that's right. I didn't handle that case.
You didn't have occasion to handle this case?
No, I'm afraid not. But that was a job that I seemed like I just couldn't wait to get back down there and play with the next case, God.
Well, there's so many injustices in the military.
Yeah.
Glad that the Army has some way of correcting it.
Yeah.
If your superior officer gets mad with you, you can end your career in a hurry.
It don't take one day.
Daddy, tell me about Robert. Russian guy.
That's your friend from World War II?
Oh, yeah,
Got
right.
a picture of you with him there somewhere.
No, that's Billy Bradford.
Yeah, William J. Brandon. Robert, there was a Russian lieutenant had been this place here in Swipe where we was. he had been captured by the Germans. Well, we called him Robert. He had a name about a yard wide. It was a Russian name, and I wish I had kept up with it. But he was attached to my unit, which is 47th Medical Depot Company. He had been liberated from being a prisoner of war by us from the Germans, and he was a medical type, and they attached him to the depot that I was in at that time. This was in 45, I guess it was, by then. And we hadn't joined up with the Russians by that time, at any rate. I was designated, I was a mess officer, motor officer, and all this other junk, you know, and I had charge of the goodies, you might say. And he had been a prisoner of war for about 5 during the years with the Germans. Yeah. At any rate, I was kind of said, look after him and give him what he needs in the way of, you know, cigarettes was like gold in them days and all this other kind of stuff, and whatever else I could furnish him with it. The old man just told him, let him do his thing. He's been a prisoner of war for 5 years until we can get it back to the to the Ruskies. At any rate, we call him Robert. And I know a boy named, I call him, to me he was just Billy Branford. He's now retired lieutenant colonel inside in Colorado Springs. But we were designated when the war ended there to take Robert back and give him back to the Russians. And they had taken Berlin. The Russians had taken Berlin at that time. So Branford and I took old Robert, and we had to go at that time through what was known as the Russian zone to get into Berlin. They had taken Berlin. But I remember when we got up there with him, they come out there like, as soon as the word got out, we was bringing Robert in, man, they came out with their vodka and all that stuff, man. We was big comrades, if you know what I mean. We had brought Robert home and turned him over to, I wish I'd have kept up with old, and got his name. He had a name about that long. We just called him Robert. And if I'd have watched while I was doing one of the board, I could have picked up his last name and the whole 9 yards on him. Because I later went to Russia and went into Moscow and St. Petersburg, and if I'd have had that, I'd have tried to look old Robert up. Even if I'd have had to contact somebody over at the president or somebody and say, tell me where he is, because I wouldn't have known where the hell he was.
Did you make any inquiries while you're in Russia about him?
No, I didn't know. I didn't. At that time, I didn't know where to begin to start, because I didn't really know what his last name really was. It was a long last name. We just called him Robert. And I wish I had got it. But as I say, while I was with the Board of Correction, all I had to do was call up the morning reports for that particular time in which I knew. And I could have got his name, the whole 9 yards, serial number, and the whole name. But I hadn't thought about it. And
Russians weren't particularly kind to their returning POWs, as you probably know.
So I hear.
Some of them regarded as traitors.
Yeah. Now, I don't know what happened to him after he got back. But I do know that when we took him up there, here they come out there with their vodka and all that kind of stuff, and all. Man, it made a big deal of us bringing him up there.
How long did it take you to get back?
You mean from Berlin to where we were?
No. I assume they were going to have a party and invite you.
No.
Tell him about
Not-
the money he gave you.
Oh, yeah, I still have the damn thing someplace. He got paid while he was up there in this Russian script. And got a pile of damn money. He hadn't been paid in 5 years. And he was handing it out to us like it was confetti. I remember Branford and he gave me one Branford one. I still got it around now. In fact, I think I've had it laminated and put away somewhere. Russian script that they had there. That kind of stuff.
When did you go to Russia?
94.
Well, you're
And
not in the military.
I had retired by then. Retired from both places, yeah. I had retired. After I retired my civil service job up there.
They were friends then.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Before they were kind of friendly.
Yeah, 1994. I couldn't believe they were the friendliest people you ever saw in Russia. We got there, they all spoke perfect English. And you couldn't, same thing, we went to China here not to, and think she went along with us. everybody in China speaks English, you know. You'd think you're right at home. They all speak English over there in China and in Russia.
Did you notice the people following you around?
Yeah.
Secret police?
No, I didn't notice nothing like that. Didn't notice. Nobody bothering you at all.
So you in Moscow and St. Petersburg?
Moscow and St. Petersburg, yeah. But these were kind of guided tours. You know, you went on buses from point A to point B, or where the hell we was going to go. And they had somebody, you know, going with us. But as I say, though, they were the nicest people. I remember talking to got off someplace there in Moscow, and we were trying to find some church. And we talked to this lady on the street. She walks 3 blocks back up and points it out to us. You know, here in the States, they said, that's where you're somewhere. But she walks back up and points it right out to us. And I couldn't believe what I did. Same thing, I was on the subway there in Moscow and was asking some kid aboard the train about some place I wanted to go to there in Moscow. He gets, of course, over there, you know, it don't cost to get on and off those subways. It's all free. You don't have to pay a nickel. Nobody does. Just gets on it and rides where we want to go and get off. But this kid gets off the train, goes back and points it out to us, and runs back down and gets on the train. But those subways in Moscow, you can't believe how far underground they were. My goodness, you just keep going down and down to get in there. I couldn't believe it.
You have escalators?
Escalators, yeah. They just keep going down. Underground. I bet you could drop an A-bomb on it and it wouldn't hurt them damn things under there.
I've heard that they're very ornately finished, too.
Yeah. You couldn't believe it. I was really impressed with it. Something about it.
A little different from the London tubes.
Oh, yeah, in London. Of course, London's a different world. So, I was stationed in England there for a while before we went in there. But they were nice people, too. What can I say? I was stationed in a little place called Barton Station. Not, as I said, not too far from Winchester.
I go back to England for reunions. I have been. I don't know whether I'll make another one.
Yeah.
They really roll out the red carpet for you.
Yeah.
Particularly if I got a big 8
Yeah.
patch on my coat somewhere.
Yeah. I think I took her to England. Didn't you go to England with us here? Not too.
But you went to China, too.
Yeah, China, too. We went to China, too.
Where were you in China?
Good God. We went up to the Great Wall, and you name it, one place to another. We had my wife's sister's son. He's married to a Chinese gal, and she was doing that. Of course, everybody in China is just like they were in Russia. They all spoke perfect English, so you didn't have to worry about the language too much. So,
I went to Hong Kong years ago, but in those days, the Iron Curtain was down. You weren't allowed. There was a particular department store in Hong Kong at the Red Chinese Land, more than a block in area, several stories. And they had the windows full of all kind of merchandise my wife wanted to buy, but we weren't allowed to go in it.
I didn't know that.
But of course, when you're in Hong Kong, there's always another place where you can buy what you want, you know.
Yeah. Well, this was kind of one of those tours where it was all laid on where we were going to go, and I don't know, but as I say, one of the first places we went was up to the Great Wall, and it was, of course, these people were with us all the time. But George is my wife's sister's boy. He's married to a Chinese gal. And,
let me get you back to the Pentagon.
mm-hmm.
What do you suppose is going on up there now with all this business in the Middle East?
Your guess about good as mine. I can't figure that.
I would think they're working around the clock 7 days a week trying to figure out what
I went, you know, hindsight's 20/20, I guess, but I'm beginning to wonder why we went in there.
You have any idea?
Satisfy old Bush's ego, I think. I don't know.
Of course, we went to Afghanistan first.
Yeah.
And and with good reason, because Osama bin Laden was there, and the Taliban.
Okay.
There was reason to believe.
Well, let's hope it all works out. I notice there's not a day goes by that we're not losing somebody over there right now.
Well, my dad told me when I went in the Army, he said, son, military service is basically inequitable. Some people get killed and some don't.
Yeah.
That's part of the price you pay when you put on the uniform.
Yeah.
I was one of those fortunate ones that,
Yeah.
but there were 26,000 youngsters, aircrew killed in the 8th Air Force in World War II. Believe it or not,
Yeah.
that's more than the Marines lost and more than the Navy lost.
Yeah.
And almost more than they lost combined. And you know,
Yeah.
it's sad to contemplate they gave their lives up.
Yeah.
19, 20 years old, you know, 18.
Well, you know, after I used to watch those planes after we got into France and into Belgium and stuff. They would be. It seemed to make no sense where they were going up. They were going in all directions up there. You know, you can see those vapor trails up there. And it made no sense to me where in the hell they were going. They were going in every damn direction you could think of up there. You remember that? I'm against the life.
Well, you know, the 8th Air Force operated at a high altitude, usually around 25,000 feet.
Yeah. Okay.
And we had what we call the 8th Air Force Highway, which was across Holland, the southern end of the Zuyder Zee, and just toward Hanover, Germany.
I guess you went straightest route to where you wanted to go to drop the bombs, all right? But
That's right. And
Yeah.
with 1,200 airplanes, you don't want to send all those against one target. Once we got into Germany, they would split off to various targets.
well,
But we had to be careful because we needed fighter protection.
yeah, I remember.
I think what you saw, when you saw all these cross contrails and what have you, was probably the 9th Air Force fighters,
Yeah,
P-47s.
I remember we moved our depot quite often while I was with a medical depot company, and we'd move it from one place to another, and we'd go and pick out a spot where we wanted to move the depot to. And I remember we had picked out a spot up there, someplace outside of Cologne in a little old town, and went back. I remember Billy Branford and I, and we got the unit together, and the old man who was, OK. Andrews, he was commanding that. We got the convoy together, head up to this little town where we had picked out to move the depot to. And when we got there, we saw all this damn smoke. Our own Air Force had came over and just bombed the living crap out of that town and didn't leave nothing up there for us to put it in. And we had to go. And that's how we wound up in Elsdorf. We took a detour to the big town of Elsdorf and put it up in the sugar factory. Right?
Bombed you in New Holland.
Yeah. Wiped it out. There wasn't nothing there when we got there. This is the place we wound up, Elsdorf.
My brother's in the 1st Division, and when I came back from Korea, I came around the world, and he met me in Frankfurt.
Mm-hmm.
Took me over to this town where he was stationed, Bamberg.
Bamberg, sure, yeah.
I think it's 26th Regiment, if I recall correctly. Only about 20 miles from the regiment.
Yeah.
But I could still see in Nuremberg, particularly, some of the bomb damage. Went to Schweinfurt, and the thing that kind of grabbed me about Schweinfurt, past those ball bearing plants,
Yeah.
you could tell where they had taken the bricks down beside the wall, the old brick, and then they just came back and used the old wall and built the bottom.
Yeah.
But if you look at the strike photographs and the photographs of the damage we did to Germany, we just about bombed it to oblivion.
Yeah. Sure did.
It's hard to believe
Yeah.
that one airplane, one A-bomb can do
Yeah.
as much damage as we did. And
Yeah.
8th Air Force was in combat almost 1,000 days. I've forgotten the tons of bombs we dropped.
Yeah.
You know, with 1,200 bombers going out day after day, you can do a lot of damage.
Yeah. That was my last tour in Germany, and of course I took her over there too. And we lived in Schweinfurt, and that, of course by that time they had built quarters there for us. as I say, we had something called gyroscope. We moved the 3rd Infantry Division over there in 58, and I believe we stayed like 61 when we came to 61. And
I've heard that's a beautiful part of Germany.
yeah, Schweinfurt yeah. They had rebuilt this. Of course, as you say, Schweinfurt was just wiped off the face of the map from what the town was originally. Yeah.
I was in Frankfurt.
As well as Munich, as far as that's concerned. Yeah.
I went to Frankfurt on a business trip in 80, I think it was.
Yeah.
And man, they built that place back.
Mm-hmm.
I was working at the time for Marta, building the railroad in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So we were the guest of here, Dr. whoever he was, who was the man in charge of building the Frankfurt subway and the transit system.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, I said, we landed out at Rhine, Maine, but we had to catch a bus over here to our hotel. When are you going to put the subway under the river? He says, they have a problem. There's some bombs down there.
Yeah. I would think so.
I dropped some bombs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Frankfurt, I had been in Frankfurt in 53,
Yeah.
and it was in bad shape.
Still hadn't gotten, yeah. I went back, as I say, over there in 48, 49, 50. And by that time, though, Munich had been, quite a bit of work had been done on repairing and replacing the big city of Munich by that time, when I got left out at that time. But of course, yeah, badly, yeah.
Yeah, 15 Air Force in Italy.
Yeah. Of course, I've been back to Germany quite a few times since I'm in Germany. So, you know, right now you never know what'll happen.
Did you keep in touch with General Lemnitz after you left Paris?
Oh, yeah, I ran into him a few times. He retired and came back and lived in the D.C. area. And once in a while he'd be in the Pentagon. And he'd show up in the Pentagon, and if I saw him in the hall, I'd go yak with him a little bit. As I say, he and I got to know each other. 'Cause you get on the golf course, you know, you know each other pretty quick.
Where was he from?
You know, his original hometown, I flat don't know where he's originally from, but he retired right outside of D.C. there, and lived right outside of D.C. there on the Virginia side. And of course, he died here a few years ago. But I don't know where he was originally from, to tell you the truth. I really don't know.
There's a story about him. You know, they flew General Eisenhower from England down to North Africa.
Yeah.
Gibraltar first.
Yeah.
Invaded North Africa.
Yeah.
And Lemnitz was a lieutenant colonel, I think, at that time. He was on Eisenhower's staff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they were in this B-17, and they saw some German airplanes. Thought we were going to attack them out of over the Bay of Biscay.
Mm-hmm.
So Lieutenant Colonel Lemnitz became a waist gunner. He had a little problem. He hadn't been checked out on a 50 caliber.
He didn't know how to use the darn thing.
Got pretty close to combat.
Yeah.
Well,
Daddy haven't talked much about your Korean War.
Korea, goodness, nobody wants to know about that place.
when did you go to Korea?
I went to Korea the first time in '53.
Well, you say so.
And I was first at Uijeonbu. You know where Uijeonbu is?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was, at that time, they put me in a helicopter unit over there. And I'm not a helicopter pilot, but they made me the adjutant and the personnel officer for this. And then they created a battalion, and it was up at Chuncheon. And then I moved up to Chuncheon. And that's where the battalion, it was 45th Helicopter Battalion, but they had two companies, 13th Helicopter Company and the 6th Helicopter Company. 6 was up at Chuncheon, where I was, and the last time. But I spent about 19 months there doing that period of time.
Well, you were there when the war ended, I guess.
Oh yeah, I was there.
Inside the truth.
Yeah, I was there when all
the
that.
war ever ended.
That damn thing keeps going on. Then my last tour overseas was in Seoul, Korea. I took the wife over there then. As I say, there was people that knew me. As Major General Raymond Marlin. We got to know each other while he was stationed in Schweinfurt at the same time I was. He was commanding the 30th Infantry Regiment, and I was in the 38th Infantry, which is in the same damn building. And he and I had played golf together up at Bad Kissing and stuff. And what had happened, he had called his adjutant general black marketing over there, in Korea. Of course, that's a damn no-no. He'd give him his charge to resign in lieu of. And he resigned, and he said, "Send me an old ward officer. I'm tired of these guys that I get over here and they do stuff like this." At any rate, they sent my records over there, and he looked and he says, "My God, I'm bound to know this guy, because they were in the same place." And so he picks me, and sure enough, when I show up, as soon as I walked in the door, he said, "Now I know exactly who you are." But he couldn't place me by looking at the record for some damn my Form 66 he had there. But we got along just fine after I got over there. And I took the wife over there with me at that time. And
what was the tour length in Korea in those days?
Well, if you was over unaccompanied, it was 1 year. Yeah. And if you weren't accompanied, you're going to have to stay 2 over there.
You ever go to Kunsan?
Oh, hell yes. I've flown in there and flown out on a chopper. Yeah.
I spent 7 months there with the 3rd Bomb Wing, 13th Bomb Squadron.
Yeah.
I know that you were born 13th of February?
13th of February.
I arrived in Korea Friday the 13th of February, 1953.
53.
Okay. Flew my first mission on Friday the 13th of March.
Yeah. Well, I went to, in 53, but I didn't go in February. I was in February in Korea, but I was, first place was out at Wee John Boo.
I got in 50 missions when the war was over.
Good God.
You're not going to believe it, so.
God almighty, man.
13th Bomb Squadron.
13th bombs. Gracious. You're going out. But my last tour in Korea, that was a good tour. I mean, I couldn't believe in it. They had the nicest golf course you'd ever want to shoot right there in Seoul. And goes, I like to play golf. You had to play at it anyway.
It wasn't quite that way when I was there.
No, hell, when during the war, goodness alive, it was terrible in there. Yeah, I got assigned to Seoul there right at the end of the war. They done away with the damn outfit I was in. That chopper unit, they didn't have any use for it when the war ended over there. And they transferred me down to Seoul just as the war ended then, and I was at 8th Army headquarters. You know where 8th Army was there. And so.
I was up to 5th Air Force headquarters a couple of times. I was told that Red Brick Village, pretty nice, that it was the Medical College of Korea. It was a big medical college. And
Yeah.
the Air Force had taken it over and turned it into
Yeah.
headquarters.
What do you think's
Living pretty good up there.
You've been seeing these things on the tube, what North Korea's doing over there? Man, they training some kind of force over there you can't believe. Just looking at what they, on the tube now, all these guys training out there.
I think we could probably win, but it would be a very bloody war.
Yeah,
You know, Seoul is only, 30 miles from the border.
that's right, yeah. Of course, I've been up to that DMZ last time I was over there. It's a jungle. I mean, you could go hunting up there if you were allowed to get in that area, because there's nothing in there, you know. They just let it grow up, but just wilderness. I guess it's a good 30 miles across, width-wise, that runs all the way across Korea there.
Every now and then they get kind of nasty. They killed a captain and a couple of them.
Yeah,
men up there
yeah.
10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Got after them with an axe. That North Korean bunch.
Well, you know, you couldn't trust a Korean no more than you can throw a mule by the tail. Something about them people. Yeah.
Well, you get talking like this, I get concerned about my grandchildren. It's a whole different war it's a whole different world from when we came up.
Oh, yeah.
The weapons are so deadly.
Goodness, I hope we don't have any more, but
I would hope also.
Goodness.
Well, you've had a very interesting career and worked with some of the top people in the Defense Department.
Oh yeah, you know. Once you get in the Pentagon, and especially when you got with that board up there, everybody in the world seems to know you there. I don't know what it was, but that was a real good job. I enjoyed that job there.
Were you particularly impressed with any of the top people you worked with up there?
Not really. I worked for an old boy named Francis Plant. He was a nice guy, but that's about, you know, what can I say? Francis Plant.
Well, Colin Powell gets very high marks for being
Yeah.
a very distinguished soldier. And he came a long way, you know, from, I guess he grew up in the Bronx.
Yeah.
Not much of a student in college, but decided the military was the way to go.
Yeah.
All the way.
As I say, he come to me and talked to me once about that Flipper case. I don't know what I thought about it. I think I just mentioned it to you.
What did he want to know, you know?
Well, Flipper had wound up getting. Did I tell you Flipper wound up getting a dishonorable discharge? He was the first black guy to graduate from the U.S. Military Academy.
I read he was set up by regimental.
Yeah, and he wound up over nothing getting a dishonorable discharge for allegedly lying to the unit, to the post commander. And if I'd have been in his cases, I'd have probably done the same damn thing. I'd have probably said the same damn thing. But anyway, Colin Powell had came to the Pentagon while I had the case. And he went out of his way to come up. At that time, he was commanding the Forces Command down here, but he had came by and wanted to know who was handling the Flipper case. And I had had it for some time, I guess 3 or 4 months, and I kept reviewing it. The old court martial was so damn old and decrepit, it was just terrible to try to read it. As I say, I finally got and my son-in-law reduced it to hard copy for me from a photograph that they had taken of things. But he came and talked to Powell, came and talked to me about it just a little bit while I was there in the Pentagon. At that time, he was commanding Force Command. I wonder what I thought about it. And I says, you know, it's apparent to me that he did disobey the command of the post out there, but if I'd have been in his shoes, I'd have probably done the same damn thing. And I think, just make it long story short, I think he got shafted. He says, that's all I want to know. And away he went. And
it's not a lawful order, you had it all turned, you had the option of disobeying.
Yeah. At any rate, when we changed this, I tell you, when we changed this discharge, he had old Flippers. He done it right. And old Flippers down there, as I say, they renamed the post office and not no old Flipper down in that little town.
You know, he had to have a lot of character. Being the first black to go through the United States military academy.
Yeah.
He probably got some pretty poor treatment on the part of the cadets.
I'm sure he did. At that time. Henry Osmond Flipper, yeah, that was one of thousands of cases. I couldn't wait to get up and get on that job for some reason. It was one of those kind of jobs.
Well, you took your wife with you on your last visit to Korea.
Yes, I took her over with me at the last time, yeah.
Your first one was unaccompanied.
Unaccompanied, yeah.
That was 19 months.
19 months.
Had to get home in a hurry. You kids to get who daddy was.
Yeah.
You did.
19 months. Yeah, but it all worked out all right in the long run, yeah.
But I came home from Korea. My daughter, when I left, she was 6 months old. She was about 18 months old when I came back. She didn't know who that strange man was who came in a flying suit with a
Yeah. When I had moved them into a weary project out here at Fort McPherson when I went to Korea, and that worked out pretty good for them because Fort Mac was just going the back gate and they was at the commissary and all that kind of stuff. Worked out pretty good for moving around now while I was going to Korea the last time.
What did you do, rent a house?
It was Wherry Project, they call it. I think the government just about ran that place down there, but it's right behind Fort McPherson at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And used to go in out the back gate and out to it. And this was in the 50s. It was real convenient for her to run from there, either that to the hospital or the commissary or anything else. Just no peace over there. So that's where it was.
Times
Worked
have
out.
changed, though.
Yeah, sure have.
Hospital.
Now they got the gate locked. Door, you couldn't get in out of there if you wanted to now.
Yeah.
But at the time I left, it worked out like a charm. Sure did.
When I came back from Europe, I went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, I think it was. No, Camp Kilmer.
Kilmer, oh yeah.
They put all the fellows coming south on a troop train. Hot July. Yeah, it was horrible. And we got to Athens, which was about 30, 40 miles from my house. I was ready to go AWOL when I stayed on the train and you did when we went to Camp Lane.
Yeah.
And when we got to Fort Mac, that old spur's still there.
Yeah.
So just beyond the old main gate.
You can wheel off and go.
We were all ready to get off the train, and they had a bunch of MPs out there with the billy clubs, and they said, "You guys gotta stay on the post. You're restricted.
Oh my
You gotta watch us." We went back through the train and over the fence. And General Courtney Hodges, you remember him?
Oh yeah, I remember.
Commanded the First Army. He had come back to Atlanta
Yeah.
that day. And they were having parties all
Courtney.
over Atlanta.
Yeah.
I wound up in the roof garden of the Ansley Hotel, and it was really quite a night.
Yeah, I remember General Hodges. Yeah.
Fine soldier.
Yeah, nice guy. Sure. Courtney Hodges.
Well, General Lucius Clay became four-star general. I don't know whether he was four-star at the end of World War II or not. But I think General Hodges was probably the senior commander from Native Georgia in World War II.
Could have been. I don't know myself. Sure don't.
Perry, Georgia.
Yeah, Perry.
General Marshall handpicked him.
He did.
When the infantry school, First Army, he actually commanded maybe twice as many men in the First Army as Patton did in the Third
Yeah.
Army.
I remember Hodges' serial number, 03030. I bet you don't know that.
Pardon me?
I remember his serial number, 03030. How
Is
about
that right?
Yeah, that's his serial number. Look at that.
03030.
03030. That's his. Easy one to remember. Isn't it?
Who was 01? General Pershing?
Damn if I know. Could have been. I don't. Could have been. But I was his damn flunky. I used to sit outside the door and keep the flies off of him.
Was that General Hodges?
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Where was this?
I had Fort Mac.
When he retired, he went to San Antonio.
He did. Yeah.
He had a brother in Atlanta, Sam Hodges, at a construction company.
Yeah, he did.
He used to visit with his brother.
Yeah.
I grew up in Perry, Georgia, which was his hometown. He had a bunch of nephews down there. Uncle Courtney would come to see him.
Everything.
When he was at Fort Benning, and he was at that time, I think, a lieutenant colonel.
Uh-huh. Small world after a while, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember when I came back from World War II, I was in my uncle's hardware store, and this lady kept watching me, and she wanted to ask me a question. I could tell that. I had on my uniform. And finally, she said, "My son is a corporal in some outfit." She said, "Did you ever run into Billy?" Ma'am, I didn't.
Afraid not.
5 million of them. He said, "Well, I guess you knew General Eisenhower, didn't you?"
That's not. Let him longer.
Oh, gee, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the only time I got to see Ike was when he came to shape.
How many children have you got besides your daughter?
I have 3 girls.
3 girls.
Yeah, she's the youngest, yeah.
She's the youngest?
She's the youngest, yeah.
And what do they do?
Well, she claims she's working, but you couldn't prove that by me.
Rest of them married?
Yeah, she's married, yeah. She works with it. anyway, she hadn't wanted to come back home yet, so I guess things are going all right.
Grandson?
Gosh, yes. Don't ask me to name them. She doesn't have any, but I got grandsons who's a lieutenant colonel in the army, for God's sake. That tells you something.
How about that?
Yeah, he just got back from Saudi. Devil. Yeah, this is his second time over there. He went over there the first time. Ronnie Hand, yeah. He is a graduate from William and Mary. Then he spent some time up at West Point as an instructor at West Point. But he'd been over there before the first time in Saudi.
Is your oldest grandson?
My oldest grandson, yeah. His name is Hand, Ronald Hand.
Well, I got 5 from about age 26 to age 5.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how many I got. I only want
5. You got 5.
5.
Is that a good round number, 5?
Yeah,
These
something.
great and great.
And that's
Or
the.
great grandson?
Oh yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
How many of them?
I'm counting.
How old a guy you getting to be?
6. You got 6 great grandchildren.
How old a fella you getting to be?
I was 82 in July.
Well, I'm 82, but I was in February, so I'm just a few months older than you. Yeah. Just not much.
The last lady, there was a lady I interviewed last time. She was a woman Air Force service pilot. They trained about, I think, 1,200 women to fly airplanes. The Air Force did. They went right through regular cadet training. And they ferried airplanes in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting lady. She said she was an airborne mother, an aviator grandmother, and about to be an airborne great-grandmother.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming in.
Well, I appreciate it. And how do I undo this thing here?
We're gonna wind it up. Let me punch the button and then we'll.
Yeah, alrighty.
Good. Looks like we've been going about an hour and 17 minutes.
Yeah, it's back on, so I think.